It's time to engage, educate, and empower with Tracey Maxfield.
Hello again, everybody. Happy Thursday, and welcome to another episode of Engage, Educate, and Empower, the weekly podcast where I speak with very special guests to talk about the social issues, life challenges, and day-to-day problems that our children, teenagers, and young adults around the world face every single day. Today's very special guest is Mr. William Murray, or as he likes to be called, Bill, and not Bill Murray, the actor, Bill Murray, who is the founder of NASCA, N-A-A-S-C-A, National Association of Adult Survivors of Childhood Abuse. And as an FYI, I am actually the NASCA ambassador for British Columbia, Canada. Now, I must give you a warning that today's podcast may be quite difficult for some of you because it is talking about very severe childhood sexual abuse and what Bill endured and what he's now trying to do to help everybody. So the bio is actually, wow, just reading it, it almost brought me to tears. So Bill comes from an Irish Catholic family, and he is the survivor of very severe childhood sexual abuse beginning at age 11 years old. Over 3 consecutive summers by a counselor at a Catholic summer camp, Bill was abused, and the predator took thousands of pubescent pornographic photos of Bill. He's been the victim of multiple male pedophiles, many of them clergy. Sometimes they used to share him between them. And he is the survivor of a 2-week interstate and international kidnapping at age 13. This sexual abuse continued right through his adolescence. He tried to get help numerous times, telling some of the adults in his life about these traumatic experiences without avail. As a freshman in high school, he decided to go to confession to a priest to divulge what had happened to him, but the man turned out to be a predator himself. Not only was he interested in Bill, but he revealed Bill's vulnerability to other clerics who then abused Bill. In the end, he just held on, naively waiting for a time when he was old enough and big enough and adult enough not to be a victim anymore, and he kept it a secret. When he was in school, he was extremely aggressive. He struggled with classwork and was uncertain of his sexual identity. Because no one asked him if he'd ever been abused, they just labeled him as having a lack of motivation. When he was 30 years old, Bill was able to seek help and healing, and now at 65, he has been in recovery from this abuse for 35 years. 20 years ago, he founded NASCA, the National Association of Adult Survivors of Childhood Abuse, and he manages a community policing website. Now retired, Bill continues to work as hard as ever and devotes all his time to running NASCA and the community policing website. Every time I hear of stories like this, I'm just shaken to the core, because what is really tragic is that what happened to him 30 years ago continues to this very day. And in fact, I think it has become even more widespread, especially with the advent of the internet. And so we're seeing it more and more. And also, as you know, human trafficking has become the epidemic. In Dallas in January this year alone, 25 teenagers ages 11 to 17 have gone missing. And one can only speculate that maybe human trafficking is involved. So we're going to take a very quick commercial break. And when I return, I will have the honor and the pleasure of introducing you to Bill Murray. Please stay tuned. This is an extremely important podcast that needs to be watched and heard. Be right back.
For more information about Tracey, her mission, the show, Tracey's book, and offered courses from Tracey herself, visit TraceyMaxfield.com. Be sure to catch the latest news on mental health and Tracey's guests on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. While you're visiting TraceyMaxfield.com, make sure to sign up for the free monthly newsletter. Keep track of Tracey with upcoming events, interviews, seasonal tips, and the latest articles on important mental health issues. Plus, when you subscribe, you'll get a copy of Tracey's booklet, Why Our Kids Are Suffering and How We Can Help Them. For more information and to sign up, go to TraceyMaxfield.com. Parents, do you worry about your children or teens? Do they have issues they don't talk to you about? Go to TraceyMaxfield.com to sign up for Tracey's informational courses. Tracey has brought connection to parents and teens all over the world. To learn more, visit TraceyMaxfield.com. A brighter future is possible.
Welcome back, everyone, and as promised, I'd like to introduce you to my very special guest this week, Mr. Bill Murray. Welcome, Bill, and thank you so much for agreeing to be on Engage, Educate, and Empower.
It's my pleasure to be here anytime I can help. Welcome to sunny Florida.
Yes, I noticed the palm tree.
Our backyard. I'm on the porch actually, but you're looking at through the screen there at the backyard, and this is our home office. It's in Pompano Beach, Florida, near Fort Lauderdale.
Nice.
And I want to make sure people understand that if you're a NASCA member like you are, Tracey, you're welcome to come by anytime. In fact, we hold meetings on Sunday afternoons for anybody. But just if you happen to be traveling in Fort Lauderdale and Miami and Boca Raton, these are destination places. Pompano Beach is right in the middle of all that, and we would love to have you come by and spend a night or two here.
That's awesome. So I briefly read out your bio before we actually connected with you, and it was a hard bio to read because of what you've gone through. Before we delve into life as a teenager for you, briefly tell the listeners and the viewers a little bit about NASCA.
Right. When I say our home office, that's what I'm referring to, the NASCA organization, which I founded about a dozen years ago, roughly. Became a nonprofit in late 2015. It was grassroots before that. And now it functions as a nonprofit and serves thousands and thousands of people really globally. And we deal with two basic topics. One is trying to promote, publicize the issue of child abuse, period, because we know it's so difficult for people to talk about it. We feel one half of our mission really is to educate the public. Yes. So that's kind of what we're doing here. And then the second part of our mission is to offer help to adult survivors of child abuse, those people who were abused in their youth and have discovered that it's running their life. There are many, many things they do, decide, choose, function, and all kinds of things, that many ramifications, in other words. And if they discover in adulthood that they should get help, we're there to do that in many, many ways. And it's a unique organization. There are no dues or fees. There's no charge for anything we ever do. We have 30 different programs. Many of them are specifically unique to us. And we function, as I say, as a clearinghouse for all the different kinds of therapies and paths there can be. We don't have a specific one we recommend. We recommend them all, and we help a person choose the path that's right for them. And then secondly, actually the first thing, as I said, educating the public, that has more to do with what I'm going to talk about here in a moment, which is to get them over the taboo of especially the sexual assault of children. which I am a victim of, and many years ago suffered terribly, and which I'll describe in a moment. But that's the one that people are so afraid of. It is an ugly topic. Don't get me wrong; it's a terrible topic. But I think our perspective is that we're not going to get very far doing it alone. Just the surviving people doing it alone. We need to engage the public, at least to get them to the place where they're not afraid to discuss it. They don't have to agree on everything or even understand everything, but they have to be able to discuss it. And I think that's the thing that I'm hoping will happen over the next few years, maybe. Hopefully before I pass, I'll see that day. But these are the two dynamics: the educating the public and the helping of the adult survivor.
And of course, you have a nightly radio show in which people can actually call in, and it's Monday through Friday. Am I right?
Right. That's one of the 30 things I said. We do 30 different things. We've been doing that for 10 years, more than 10 years. So we've now done over 3,000 podcasts, 90 minutes long. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we have people come on and they tell their story. We call them special guest shows. And on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we have people which we refer to as hyphenates, meaning that they are both a survivor and have a profession of some capacity that's related to child abuse. We had a homicide and child abuse detective on last night, for example. She was also a survivor. Sometimes it's a minister or a life coach or someone that's gone through clergy abuse, or different kinds of professions that allow them to speak from either their specific profession, or of course they can speak to any topic, like all of us can, that relates to child abuse and trauma. It's prevention, intervention, and recovery. So those are the Tuesday and Thursday shows. So yes, 5 nights a week now, Monday through Friday.
Awesome. And so let's take a step back.
Okay.
To when you were a teenager, and I found it very difficult even reading your bio, because it's so unbelievable and horrific, and we've seen so much lately about exposing what the clergy have done for decades. But I think now with the internet, we're seeing it everywhere, and of course human traffic has become the new scary epidemic. And it seems like we're just a world hurtling out of control. So your abuse first began when you were 11 years old, is that right?
Right. I had been sent to a summer camp by my folks for a month. They wanted me to have a good time in the summer. And they chose a Catholic summer camp about 6 or 8 hours from my house. Well, maybe 6 hours from my house. So it wasn't a place I could go home on the weekends.
Right.
And I went for the whole month. And almost immediately I was approached by a religious person, a brother, not a priest, but a brother, who engaged in sexual assault with me. He also did a lot of pornography. I actually went there for 3 summers in a row, a month at a time each time. And it increased over time, but immediately he found me and immediately started to introduce me to sex. I didn't even know the word sex, never heard it before. And I turned into kind of a stone at first. I was, what is he doing? But then over time, he coerced me, or we call it grooming, groomed me by giving me extra projects that I could help him with that were adult projects. For example, he was a fabulous photographer, a really great photographer. And he had wonderful cameras. He had Nikon cameras, and he had his own private dark room there. And he was the camp photographer, but he also took many thousands of pictures of me, pornographic pictures, 11, 12, 13 years old. And this was prepubescent. So this is before teenage years, before I had grown any hair on my body, before my voice had changed, before anything had happened to me. I was still a child, a real child.
Yes.
And at the end of the 3rd year, he now knew my parents very well because they had met him for the 3 years, and he had given them legitimate, I'll call them, photographs of me on a horseback or me in a canoe or swimming in the pool, things like that. And they were wonderful pictures. He was a great photographer. So thank you so much, brother. It's wonderful, that you've given these pictures to us of our son. Well, the third year, he introduced to them the concept that since there were a few more weeks left in the summer and he was going to have to go back to teaching school, which is what he did in the wintertime, and I was going to have to go back to school too, that wouldn't it be a great idea if Bill came along with me on a trip I'm about to take for 2 or 3 weeks to see Expo 67. And they thought, what a wonderful opportunity for Bill to even go see another country. So they said yes. I didn't say a thing. I hadn't said a thing this whole time. But as you mentioned earlier, my reaction to all this, or maybe you didn't mention it, but my reaction to all this was in between camp, I was extremely confused. I was a daydreamer in school. I was out the window all the time. My schoolwork completely suffered. My attitude suffered in life, and nobody knew what was wrong, and I wasn't saying. They didn't ask the right questions, frankly. But I was scared because I found out on the playground after the first summer that this thing with, sex, whatever sex was, between a man or a man and a boy was, I believed that people were talking about being a faggot with other kids.
Of
I
course.
learned it from them that it was something I should be ashamed of, that I should hide, that wasn't normal, that, people looked down on and so forth. And so that was part of my consternation. How am I going to deal with this? I didn't feel attracted to him at all.
Of course.
But he did not require me to do anything to him. I was always the object of his attention. Again, part of the grooming process. And, I was the model for his camera, which I enjoyed doing, I have to say, and made to feel special. Well, when that third summer ended and he invited me on that trip, everything changed. Because my parents put me on a bus in Virginia, where we lived, up to New York City, and he met me at the Port Authority on 42nd Street at the bus station. And the first thing he did when we were in his car and leaving the Port Authority was he unzipped his pants, pulled out his penis, and stuffed my head down in his lap. And that had never happened to me before. I'd never even seen his penis before. I was shocked. And this was actually, Tracey, in broad daylight. On the streets of New York. And there were people walking by and buses going by and all, it's like, well, what ensued was a couple of weeks, 2.5 weeks, I believe it was, of taking me from place to place to place. I didn't know where I was. I couldn't escape. 911, for example, didn't exist back then. And he played with me under the boardwalk in Coney Island. He took me to an apartment I think it was maybe in Queens, where he had a mattress on the floor and somebody must have lent him the apartment. He took me to the school he taught at, which was Nazareth High School in Brooklyn, a Catholic high school. And he also had a dark room there. So he played with me there at the high school and in the dark room. He took me to meet a couple other men who had young boys, sort of couples, if you want, where the little boy was obviously the object of that man's sexual attention, and he tried to get me to interact with them, which I refused, but he kept getting more and more angry. Finally, we went to another summer camp up in Vermont, where it was kind of a nudist camp for boys. And during the week, they encouraged the boys to run around naked. And on the weekend, you were supposed to wear T-shirts and a short because sometimes parents came to visit on weekends. But I was there for a few days. We even went on an outside camping trip from this place to overnight in a lean-to somewhere up in I don't know where I was, and that was with another guy, another fellow with a young boy. Anyway, all of this happens, and I did end up being taken to Montreal for one night, where he drove up. Actually, we got stopped by a state trooper on the New York Thruway, and I didn't say anything, and he was speeding. And the state trooper let him go. But, he almost got caught right then. And again, I didn't say anything. I don't know why. I was terrified. I didn't know what to do. He stood me in front of some of the expositions in Expo 67, some of the projects they had there, and took some pictures to prove that we'd been there, basically. Took me back to New York, put me on a bus, and I went home. Well, 2 weeks after that, I went to high school. And I had asked my parents if I could attend a minor seminary. We were extremely Catholic. And my first possible choice of occupation was priesthood. And so I went to a minor seminary. So my high school years were spent at a boarding school, which was actually a minor seminary for boys who were in teenage years. And it was hell, because the first year, almost right away, one of the priests who lived with us in the dormitories brought me down to his room and said, I think you've had homosexual experiences, and I denied it. And he asked me again a few days later. I said no. And the third time he asked, I thought to myself, I better talk to this guy. So I did. Went down to his room, closed the door, and in the milieu of a confession, which is a huge big deal to
Catholics, yes.
It's a sacrament. He had me tell my story, and I did. I told him the whole story. It took a couple of hours, the way I told it that day, and he gave me absolution. He gave me some penance and some instructions, and I went off thinking, thank goodness I've found someone that's going to help me. But he himself was a pedophile. And he told another priest who told another priest, who told a lay person, who told a college student. The first 2 years of the 4 I spent there were horrible, because I was constantly trying to stay away from and avoid these men, priests and lay people, but mostly priests and brothers. And then at the point of being a junior, a third-year student in high school and a senior, I wasn't going to put up with it. I was so pissed. I was angry. I'd had a growth spurt. I was much bigger. They weren't going to mess with me. They could tell that they were going to get punched, basically, if they came near me. I spent the last 2 years, actually my grades improved dramatically. I graduated right in the middle of my class. My class, by the way, only had 15 in it. So I was 7 of 15 in the graduating, line. Which was pretty good, because I nearly flunked out both freshman and sophomore year.
No kidding.
I got back by the skin of my teeth. And when I went off to college, I chose a college that was not there. It was away from them. It was, again, about an hour's flight from home. I didn't want to be near home either. And I went to Toronto, which also is in Canada, obviously. And I attended the University of Toronto. And I learned how to drink beer and play guitar and mess around with girls. I tried to. I wasn't very good at it, but that was my beginning of even being around girls.
Right.
I'd been so cloistered in my experience. We didn't have girls in the high school, so we didn't date. And I went crazy overboard on all 3 of those eventually.
Of course.
And I became an alcoholic and a drug addict, also a musician, and also a pursuer of girls. And I did indeed find out I was heterosexual and loved girls. But I also, I took advantage of my story. The only time I told my story was I told it to girls as a kind of a weapon to get sex off of them. And it worked, frankly. And so through my 20s, I was extremely confused, baffled, really, very depressed, didn't know where to turn, drinking like crazy.
Yeah.
Could not put a career together. I had dropped out of the U of T after maybe 2.5 years, so I didn't finish college. And that's the place I found myself in my late 20s. So here's my story of childhood and adolescence and at least early adulthood.
I'm speechless. I thank you so much for sharing it. There are so many emotions that kind of go through you as you listen to it, because it's horrific, and it's heartbreaking, and it's so frustrating, and it's so despicable that another human being, or in your case, multiple human beings,
absolutely,
actually stripped you of your childhood, of your teenage years, but also of your identity. And at the end of the day, you end up having to go down a dark path, because that's the only way you know to manage the pain. And, this is one of the primary reasons why I'm doing this podcast. I talk all the time about ACEs. You put one of my articles in the newsletter. You've spoken about it on your radio show. adverse childhood experiences and the fact that people everywhere need to understand what this traumatic events, what this toxic stress does to a child, to a teenager, as they're developing, as they're growing up and trying to make sense of the world. And yes, if we don't step in and help them, you go down a path.
But you might find it interesting, Tracey, that if I took my ACE score, it would be pretty low. I don't. Well, my parents didn't divorce. There was no other alcoholism in my family. I was the sole one, so nobody else. Nobody ever went to jail. All those things that are on the ACE thing where you have to answer yes. For those who don't know, it's a 10-question test. The more yeses you have, the higher your score. So you could score a 0 to a 10. The higher your score, if you score a 7 or an 8, you're likely to have difficulty in adulthood. Well, I'll bet you my score is maybe a 4, maybe.
Okay.
It's low. It's very low. But it doesn't matter. What matters is the intensity of the things that did happen to me were such that I didn't need it to be any higher. I was taken care of. I know I was loved. I never looked for a meal. I had a roof over my head and clothes on my back, all of that. And yet this occurred to me, and you said it destroyed my childhood. I remember sitting in school thinking, all I have to do is wait until I'm 18.
Yeah.
And then I'll be able to do whatever I want, and no one will be able to tell me what to do again. That was my childhood thought at 12 or 10 or whatever. And
Me too.
I ruined my childhood. I lost my childhood. It was gone.
And no, I hear you. Mine was not sexual. Mine was intense, emotional, mental abuse. And yes, it was wait until you're 18. My motivation was going to be a nurse, move to the States. That propelled me when I was in Britain. Now, interestingly, when you say about sometimes the ACE score will never reflect the true nature of what has happened, they recently adapted it. And so they have a subform now, which has brought in things like environmental and bullying, which I think is a step in the right direction. The sad thing is, they've just done a research study, and they've said in the United States, every single child has at least one ACE already. Every single child, and up to 70% probably have 3 or more, which in itself is scary, because the reality is one ACE shapes your brain. And I think that's what,
It's a very common thing. These are life experiences that are common to many people. And, unfortunately, I'm here more to talk about the sexual part, but we cover if you were physically abused or violently abused, if you were emotionally or mentally traumatized, if you were neglected, all of those things. And we bring in bullying, we bring in trafficking, we bring in issues that are slightly outside. We bring in domestic violence because we believe that children who grow up in a home, which I didn't, where domestic violence exists, even if they're never touched, are dramatically affected, at least emotionally, by watching mom and dad go at it all the time and not
100%.
know when the shoe is going to drop, right?
You're absolutely right. Yes.
Cover all those issues. In fact, on bullying, I hated bullying so much. I saw other kids being bullied by some of my classmates, for example. I would go bully the bully. I'd say, oh, yeah, well, take it out on me then, and I would get in fist fights with bullies. That was how I expressed my anger about how dare you take advantage of somebody. I was the one being taken advantage of. I didn't tell them that. But when I saw someone else being taken advantage of for one of my classmates, it was sort of effeminate. And they made a big deal about it. And it pissed me off. And I took out one of the biggest kids, between classes. And we had a fist fight out on the sidewalk outside the school, and both came back all bloodied. We both went to the bathroom and cleaned ourselves up. We became friends after that, frankly.
Yeah.
But he never bullied that kid again.
Good.
Because I threw a kid off of a dam, a short dam, into a lake who wouldn't shut up about something. And I told him, you better shut up. No, we were on a field trip, a biology field trip. And I said, oh, yeah. And I grabbed his shoulders and threw him off the dam. kapoosh. And Father, who was leading the group, the biology teacher, what was that? And everybody looks, what was that? That was me. That's how I didn't have anything else, any other way to express it.
Exactly.
It really made me mad when I saw other kids being treated disrespectfully, frankly, and they were not as capable as I was to defend themselves, even to the point of taking out, other classmates, take them out for it.
No, I absolutely. Hey, I did it myself. I remember stepping in to defend others, and actually, it was a group of boys on bikes. And I actually went up to them and I just grabbed him by the scruff of the neck and pulled him off and just punched him. But it's because you have that inherent sense of right and wrong. And it's like, no way are you going to do that. And it's because of what we've gone through that it shaped our brains to respond differently.
Right.
So you finally sought help, and obviously it's brought you to where you are today with NASCAR, which is a godsend.
No, it didn't bring me to where I sought help and nobody helped.
Is that right?
I sought help, for example, with that priest I told you.
Yes.
I also went to a psychologist years later. I had a big, huge drink. I had like an orange juice. I had a vodka and orange juice, drink at my mother's house. And I blurted out in front of my parents, well, what do you know? All those priests were gay anyway. And she said, what did you just say? And so I thought it was time for me to bring it up. And I had my mom and dad and my girlfriend at the time and myself meet at a psychiatrist's office in Manhattan. My girlfriend and I came up from where we were living in Brooklyn. My parents came down from Connecticut. We met at this neutral place. And I told my story. I needed to make sure that my father wasn't going to have a heart attack, for one thing. And he nearly did.
Of course.
But the shrink didn't know what I was talking about. See, back then, they didn't even believe little boys could be sexually abused.
Well, exactly, yes.
And I was 27 by this point. I was way beyond the abuse. But I was seeking help. I mean, the only thing that had helped so far was the drugs and alcohol. It worked great. And sex to some degree, too. Certainly to identify myself as heterosexual was a huge, huge deal.
Yes.
But the drugs and alcohol, they were my best friends. And it wasn't until a few years after this, after trying, I spoke to priests. They didn't know what to do. After trying a number of things, I went to rape hotlines. I went to Planned Parenthood centers. All these places treated me like I was the devil.
Right.
Because I was male. And they didn't want me. They were like, get out of here, buddy, And I finally decided I needed help with my drinking, and I went to Alcoholics Anonymous. That's where I got help.
Okay.
Not at first for my drinking, but I also came to understand pretty quickly that the same process that they were using is described as a design for living, which is why so many other programs and organizations have borrowed the same 12 steps and sort of inserted their own thing, overeating. We admitted we were overeaters and our lives have become unmanageable, right? So you just put in your issue. And so I did. And without telling anybody what I was doing, I inserted the fact that I knew what my big problem was. It was it was my suffering from the trauma. And so I began to use the same process within weeks of establishing myself in AA, and I started talking about it. And the people in my home group were shocked. Nobody ever talked like that in an AA meeting. But the elders, a couple of the elders pulled me aside and they said, we don't know what you're talking about. We don't understand it. But we also believe that there's probably people who are coming into the groups after you who need to hear what you're saying, because it's obvious that what you went through as a child sets you up to drink as an alcoholic immediately. I drank like to oblivion the first time I got hands on alcohol. So they gave me permission in my home group. So I spoke then in small pieces, and sometimes when they asked me to, in larger pieces, because they sometimes ask you to be the speaker for the meeting or whatever. It's always been a part of my story. Now, that's 37 years ago. I've been working on it for 37 years, in other words, in a positive way. I tried to work on it before that and didn't get any help.
Right.
But this path has been, it's really been a process of the 12 steps working in my life, because I've never seen a professional counselor about this. I've talked to many, many people, thousands, who are counselors and psychologists and priests and ministers and life coaches and on and on and on. But I've never been a patient of one of them.
Right. Okay.
In fact, I'm the mentor for an awful lot of them nowadays.
Right. Of course you are. Yes.
So that was how it began, and that was in 1984. So it's a lot of years.
A lot of years. Yes. So, if there's any teenagers, parents, teachers, anyone that's watching right now and either is going through something or knows someone or even, suspects, what advice can you give?
We have a wonderful page about helping the kids on the website, which of course is nasca.org. And among other things, the first thing you have to do is you have to identify what suspicions are real and what aren't. So you're looking for behaviors. You're looking for activities that they do. Perhaps performance has dropped. And there's a bunch of things on that page that suggest the possibility that something's going on inside the kid that's not obvious.
Right.
But it could be, like I say, grades dropping. It could be they no longer want to hang out with certain kinds of people. It could be, they have some physical ailments. I was sent to the infirmary a bunch of times with probably what they considered a nervous breakdown or something when I was a kid.
Right.
And they gave me something to drink and kept me there 2 nights, and they sent me back to the cabin, at the camp, for example. If this is going on, if your child has become an introvert, for example, their behavior has changed a great deal, these are all possible signs. Now, what do you do about it? You go to your child, and this is assuming you're not the abuser, obviously.
Of course.
Unfortunately, though, I should say children are mostly sexually abused by family members. Their own parents, their uncle, their bigger brother, their
grandfather, yeah.
Or mom. Mom just do it too.
Yeah.
But in this case, let's say we have a child who you have a suspicion, but you're not sure. You go to that child, and you don't query them. You don't question them. You certainly don't grill them.
Exactly.
You try to get them to engage in telling you a story about what their day was like or something like that. Right? And you'd never be shocked by whatever they say.
Exactly.
As they enter into some areas that are uncomfortable for you, that might be hard for you to do, but you have to be disciplined about it, because as soon as you get shocked, the kid's going to shut up. I mean, the child wants to please everybody, wants to please you, wants to please the predator. Part of their keeping the secret is because they don't want the predator to get in trouble either, especially if it's grandpa, for example, or something like that. And so they, for a variety of reasons, need to be coerced into, not coerced.
Guided into telling you what's going on. Yeah.
Telling you stories, and you can engage a little bit of questioning, but don't ask a question after a question after a question.
I agree.
Down right away. And then I got to be honest. Once you have you are certain that there is abuse going on, it's not your job to be the interrogator. You take them to a forensic person who's trained in doing this kind of work.
Yes.
It can be a psychologist who's forensically trained. It can be a law enforcement person. It depends on where you live. Some agencies, some organizations, law enforcement organizations, have much better services than others. And the one thing I would recommend you look for, in case you have one, because they're the best thing since sliced bread, is child advocacy centers. They're called CACs, Child Advocacy Centers. These are institutions that are all, most of the time, in one building, but they have all the disciplines that a child will need in the one building. They'll have even examination rooms that are medical, but are child-friendly. Everything in the place is colorful, and toys and bears and things like that, making a child feel comfortable. Flowers. You'll have forensics interviewing. You'll have officers, but they don't dress like cops. They just regular
people. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're actually taking your information down, but you don't know it as a kid. You're just having a conversation. Mm-hmm. Then as time goes on, they may even record some of these conversations. So it precludes the child from the necessity, if this is the case, for going to court, because
of course
the video
that's traumatic.
Well, this is wonderful. You want to help a child through. This is very traumatic too, to go show up and be poked by a nurse and talked to by a cop. And you'll go back several times to these same place, child advocacy centers, and you'll see different kinds of people, including therapists. And this is also for the family. They will do ongoing therapy with moms and dads as well as the child. And you want to get the child help as soon as possible. This is the goal. As soon as possible, because you want them to avoid some of what you and I went through. And the earlier you can address it, the better.
I agree.
So these are some of the recommendations. You'll find all this on the NASCA site in more detail. It actually tells you how to talk to a child. And you talk a little differently to a child that's quite young to one that's a little older or one that's a teenager. It's a little
agree.
But
yes.
That basic concept is, encourage them to tell you the story of what happened, not and then what happened, and how did you do that? And, oh my God, and then never do that, because they will stop. But you should stop too. As I said, it's important to know, once you have confirmed abuse, stop and take that to a professional or a group of professionals like that at Child Advocacy Center. We should have one in every county of the country. We don't.
I agree.
There are several hundred. And if you're lucky enough to be anywhere near one, get yourself to that. Take your family to that. Your child, your husband, your spouse, your wife, and your child. And they will take care of you in a way that I don't think anybody else is really positioned to do.
Equipped to do. Yeah, I agree. Now, obviously, we'll put up all the links when we go to a commercial break. And also, we'll put the link directly to the child information. So it avoids people having to search, although the website is awesome. I've been through it many times, and there is so much info there that is...
I think it's pretty intuitive, too.
Yes.
The goal is you don't have to hunt very hard. It's all there.
It's all there,
yeah. Everything we do. And thousands of people are involved here. I mean, it's not just me. Dozens are engaged like you are. They write articles, they come on the shows, they run different programs, dozens. And thousands are members. And you're a member if you say you are. There isn't even any dues or registration. You're a member if you say you are. And the only requirement is a desire to deal with the trauma of your youth. That's it. It's the only requirement for membership. And of course, we encourage supporters of this to join too, of course. So, we have a mixture of every kind of person. You know this, Tracey.
Yes, I do. And I have a couple coming up on the podcast. Yeah.
There you go. Black, brown, green, yellow, and blue. Every religious background. Some are wealthy. Some are very poor. Some are, we are across the spectrum a group that, child abuse doesn't. It's not ethnic. It's not every, and it's a pandemic.
Anyone and everyone. Yes, I agree.
Globally.
Global. So. Absolutely. Now, awesome advice for any teenager or any adult that has suspicions and wants to know how they can help the child. What would you advise? So let's say we have someone watching this now who are maybe in their 40s or late 20s and went through sexual abuse or any kind of abuse which they know has had a detrimental impact on their life.
Right.
And they're sitting listening to you and thinking, what should I do next? What would you encourage them to do next?
Well, I'd certainly go look at the website. I'd also attend a bunch of the shows. They are really there for the newcomer. They're not there for me to tell my story. I've told my story thousands of times. It's not difficult for me to tell my story anymore. But sometimes we have people who are telling their story for the first time. What an honor for us to be the venue for that. And it happens fairly frequently. And then we have people from, in different stages of their own recovery. But the point is, you will identify with them. And we do the show for you, the listener, not for that guest, not for me, not for the host, but for you, the listener. We want you to come back. That's it. We want you to listen to another show. We want you to check out the website. We want you to join our Facebook groups, some of which are closed, some of which are open, or our LinkedIn groups, or go to Twitter or whatever it is. We have all the social media. And of course, a lot of young people use social media, but so do people in their 40s.
Oh, definitely.
Get involved. And we have contact lists with how many people you think there are. There are many dozens of people who put their phone numbers there, and they don't have to live near you. They only have to be awake when you call for it to answer the phone, and they all put their number there.
Yeah, I'm one. Yes. Yeah.
One of them. You're one of them. And now, can I say one thing about the teenager? Because I skipped over something that
absolutely
occurred to me. If you're a teenager and you suspect child abuse is going on, you actually have a special role to play, because, you know, I don't know if you recall when you were a kid, Tracey, I certainly do, that the person I listened to most was the person who was a couple of years older than me, not my parents, not the priest. It was if I was 12 and somebody 15 talked to me, wow.
They had the wisdom. Yeah.
Right. So they also have the power then,
yes,
to take that kid, that 12-year-old, and say, I know what you're going through because I went through it too. And let's go talk to my mom about how to get you help, or something like that. You have a special gift, in other words, while you're young. Don't not use it. And this will happen. This will stay true all through your 20s. When you're 40, you won't have that gift, but you can regain it, because in recovery, that's what we do. We pretty much tell our stories. We start to acquire tools and techniques that help us feel comfortable, which is what recovery is. To me, it's being comfortable inside of myself, which was a brand new experience when it first started to happen. You know, comfortable? I didn't know what that was. But that is the goal, to be comfortable inside yourself, and therefore to have at least the opportunity for a better life beyond this point. Well, you're going to be able to turn around, and you're going to be able to give that to others. That's what we do. And
it is. It is.
It's not that all of us have this ability, in other words, trained or not trained. Once we get into recovery and have our own background and experience in our own path, and we build on that, we can help each other and help other survivors.
I agree, because I think everyone needs to know that they're not alone. It doesn't matter what age they are, where they're from. It doesn't matter. You're not alone, and that we're all in this together. And if you reach out, there is so much compassion and support and resources that can help you navigate this stage that you're going through. And with this support, like me, you come out of it, you're different, but you come out of it stronger, and I think more compassionate and understanding, and you have a renewed purpose in what gifts you have that you can share.
You know, you mentioned you never have to be alone again if you join NASCA. There will be thousands of people who are interested in you, and dozens of them who you'll become friends with.
Yes.
Really, literally dozens. So you'll have kind of a family of choice. We call ourselves a NASCA family. These are people who, over time, you get to know, and they get to know you. They'll take a call from you anytime. And this is unique for us. You know, you talk about not feeling so alone, not feeling so damaged, not feeling so ashamed, not feeling good enough, being worried that you're going to get thrown out. Nobody's ever thrown out in NASCA.
Yeah.
You know, as long as you abide by sort of adult behavior, that's it. There is no rules. You know, there are no rules. It's a unique organization with a really important mission. I guess I'll say it that way. And I'm proud that part of it. I'm proud of all the people that are a part of it, because it is a we thing. I don't do this. You and I do this, Tracey, along with dozens of other people.
Oh, hundreds. And I want to point out that there are many, many men that are part of the NASCAR family. So don't think for one moment that it's just a whole bunch of women. There are so many men who have stepped forward to share their stories as well. So, Bill, thank you so much. I can't believe how quickly the time has gone. There's so much more that we could discuss, and I think I'll have to have you back for another show. But
time for that, Tracey.
It's been an absolute honor. Thank you so much for sharing your story and your guidance. And we're going to actually go to a quick commercial break, but on the commercial, you will actually see not only all the different social media links so you can connect with Bill and NASCAR, but also we'll put some of the hyperlinks so you can find out the information sheets on how you can communicate with a child if you suspect. that the child is being abused. So thank you again, Bill.
God bless.
Thank you so much.
Bill Murray is the founder of Los Angeles Community Policing and the founder of the National Association of Adult Survivors of Child Abuse. Bill has long been a nationally recognized public safety advocate with the LACP, where he encourages residents to engage in public safety, homeland security, and in helping their neighbors reduce crime, the fear of crime, and improving quality of life. As a child, Bill was a victim of childhood abuse, and after his parents had passed, had started the National Association of Adult Survivors of Child Abuse in order to bring awareness to child abuse, child trafficking, child pornography, and kidnapping. Bill also hosts the 6-night-a-week talk show Stop Child Abuse Now, where he chats with special guests and experts and has thousands of episodes. For more information on Bill or the National Association of Adult Survivors of Child Abuse, visit naasca.org, find him on Twitter at NAASCA Official, or find the NAASCA Facebook group and follow his Stop Child Abuse Now talk show on Facebook.
Welcome back, everybody. I must say, I'm very rarely speechless, but I thank Bill for his honesty and candor and his willingness to share his story, because sharing it will actually help others. I'm still gobsmacked at what human beings can do to another human being, especially a child, a teenager, a young adult. So yeah, I'm still stunned. Please certainly check out NASCA. There is so much great information and useful resources and phone numbers. And if you have gone through abuse, neglect, and need help, please reach out. And if you know or suspect a child, a teenager, could be experiencing abuse, neglect, needs help, please follow the guidelines that Bill suggested from the NASCA site, and we have provided the hyperlink. Reach out, be there, and support them and help them. We need to make the world a kinder, gentler, safer place, and it all begins with you, with me, with all of us, being compassionate, understanding, kind, and standing by and standing up to help another person, especially a child. So thank you so much for your time today. Join us again next Thursday for another episode of Engage, Educate, and Empower. Have a great week, everybody.